it's hard, Duncan, to just keep track of just how this unfolds. So from the point of view of business, really the name of this game has been, do you look past? Do you assume there's no deal? Do you assume there is a deal? What is business thinking about all of the toing and froing around this looming deadline on Brexit?
Well, we're right in the middle of another hugely dramatic week in British politics. And I suppose in the US, we're used to seeing the executive not having control of the House. That's very unusual in the UK. And in fact, by definition, the executive has to have control of the House. And yet, under Mrs. May for 6 months, and then yesterday, very dramatically, in the first test for Boris Johnson, he lost. And as a result, expelled 21 of his own members of parliament. So I think, to answer your question, business is scratching its head about this. This is now 3 years since the referendum. And whilst business overwhelmingly wants an agreement, this endless uncertainty is also very unhelpful.
So, Duncan, what do your members want at the moment? Do they prefer a general election in order to get some more clarity and a little bit of more influence for the new prime minister? Or do you prefer to just continue as is and delay Brexit? What would be the best outcome in the short term?
Well, I think that without now a working majority of any form, the only solution is a general election. I think there has to be a general election. The timing of that will depend upon the result of the next couple of days of parliamentary activity, both in the lower house and in the upper house. The bizarre situation is that having called for an election for the last 2 years, the opposition Labour Party is now refusing to grant permission for the Labour Party because of an arcane piece of internal machinery of the UK Parliament. So it's not as if Johnson can just call for an election. He has to get approval of 2/3 of the House. And they're not going to grant him that until this bill, which mandates a delay in Brexit, is passed. So we are stuck between a rock and a hard place. We believe that a general election is required. This is preferable to a second referendum, a general election where a new House of Commons is elected with clarity on this issue, one way or another.